Last week at the Royal Commission into Anti-Semitism and Social Cohesion, the Shadow Education Minister Julian Leeser called for universities to undertake an audit of any classes that teach about the Jewish community, Israel or Palestine. He joins us on the program this afternoon. Welcome to the program.
Good to be with you, PK.
You gave a deeply personal evidence at the Royal Commission on Friday, speaking about the impact that the Bondi terror attack had on your son. Why was it important for you to share that very personal story?
I wanted to demonstrate that even for people who were not at the Bondi terrorist attack, and we weren't at Bondi, we were at another Hanukkah celebration at St Ives, which is in northern Sydney, not far from my electorate, that the ramifications of what has gone on in Bondi has made people feel less safe. I told the story that my son had overheard the fact that there were people who were shot and killed at Bondi at the Hanukkah commemorations, and he sat cross-legged on the grass and he said, "Dad, why are people trying to shoot us? Will we be safe? Why do they have guns? Are they going to come for us too?" And now when we go to Jewish communal events in synagogues or other places like the Bondi commemoration, he's very nervous and his little hand grips my hand tightly and asks me, "Dad, will we be safe?" And I can't guarantee that safety. And I wanted to really focus the Commission on the question that we've been confronting as a country. What sort of country are we creating where a young child cannot go to a place of worship in safety? That is not the Australia I want to create for my family, and it's not the Australia I want to create for anyone's family.
Middle East policy was one of the only points of near debate at the Labor conference on the weekend. On a couple of points, you've been critical, the Liberal Party or the opposition's been critical. I just spoke with, of course, Josh Burns, who was the co-sponsor of What Did Change, and he said it is government policy that Hamas disarm, and it's the first time Hamas has been named in the Labor Party platform and rebuked. Do you accept that?
Look, I don't accept that. I think you have to remember that the Labor Party National Conference is their supreme policy-making body, and that for many years members and senators were bound by the decisions of the National Conference. It's also the major national gathering of the Labor Party. When the Labor Party met in New South Wales for their state conference, they had a significant period of commemoration for the Bondi terrorist attack. There was no such commemoration at the National Conference. You then had this motion at a time when we've got the Royal Commission running, at a time when people are concerned about Hamas, an organisation that Australia has chosen to list as a terrorist organisation in our own country, that Hamas was not asked to disarm, and that Hamas was not asked to cease playing any further role in a future Palestinian state. You have to ask yourself, who in the Labor Party wants Hamas to remain armed? Who in the Labor Party wants them to play a future role in a future Palestinian state? And the question for the Prime Minister and the Foreign Minister today is, do they support Hamas being disarmed? Do they think Hamas should play any future role in a Palestinian
Well, Josh
state?
Burns said no, they do think they should be disarmed, and no one suggested that they should have power at the Labor conference, did they?
Well, the question is, why weren't those particular statements and sentiments mentioned in the resolution? Because my understanding was that, and I'm not a member of the Labor Party, Josh is, but my understanding was that used to be in the Labor Party platform, that Hamas needed to disarm and Hamas should play no further role in a future Palestinian state, and that was no longer there. And the Prime Minister and the Foreign Minister took great pains over recent weeks to try and remove motions that they didn't like. The question is why they couldn't have put those words in the statement, because what worries me is that without those words in the statement, with effectively a watered-down statement in Hamas, is the government eventually going to water down its position on Hamas? I think that's bad for Australia.
OK, but there's no evidence that that's about to happen.
Well, what I would say to you is that the Labor Party National Conference is the supreme policy-making body in the Labor Party, and what worries people in the Jewish community is that that more weakened version, that more weakened form of words in relation to Hamas that doesn't call for them to disarm and that doesn't call for them to play no further part in a Palestinian state will actually in the future reflect government policy.
Ed Husick's push for an amendment that would recognise claims that a genocide had occurred in Gaza and recall Australian diplomats from Israel failed. Does that give you any comfort? Obviously, they're positions you don't agree with, and the Labor Party wouldn't even allow them to be debated.
Well, I think it does show that there remains within the Labor Party a deep hostility to the State of Israel, which I think is unfortunate. That hostility does not exist in the coalition. We want to see a two-state solution. We want to see the situation in the Middle East normalise. We want to see a future where Hamas plays no further role, where they disarm. And that was a long time bipartisan position, but that's a position that is clearly weakening within the Labor Party.
Began the interview by telling people that you'd also called for essentially an audit of the kind of education that goes on around Israel, Palestine. What would that look like?
Yeah, I've been very disappointed at the way in which university leaders have dealt with anti-Semitism on our campuses. And one of the things that's concerned me is their failure to adopt a definition of anti-Semitism. Another failure that's concerned me, as I've spoken to about 75% of Australia's vice-chancellors, is that in the wake of the terrorist attacks in Bondi, in the wake of the establishment of the Royal Commission, in the wake of the anti-Semitism envoy's report, in the wake of the document that was produced by Greg Craven, no one has gone through and audited courses to see what is being taught about Israel and Jews on our campuses and to what extent that is contributing to anti-Semitism. And also no one has gone through and looked at doing an audit of what is being taught about the Israel-Palestine conflict. Now, let me be clear. I want students studying the Israel-Palestine conflict to hear the best arguments for Palestine. I want them also to hear the best arguments for Israel, and I want them to get those arguments and then to make up their own mind. What concerns me is that there may be one-sided courses where they say, yes, we've got balance because we've got an Israeli perspective and a Palestinian perspective, but let's say the Israeli perspective might be very strong and the Palestinian perspective might be weak and unrepresentative, or vice versa. I want them to hear the best versions of the arguments from advocates and then let students make up their own minds.
Just finally, today Andrew Bragg, one of your colleagues, made a statement that's been very much poured over in relation to building a coalition with One Nation potentially. Is that something that you think should happen?
I didn't see Andrew Bragg's statement, but let me be clear. My view is that as a Liberal Party member, I want to go and win as many seats as we possibly can for the Liberal Party. That's my job. And more importantly, I've been out and about in my electorate today talking to people who are struggling to make ends meet. I met a woman today at a listening post who has had to cancel her private health insurance this year in order to keep the heating on.
But given Malcolm Roberts is in One Nation, he's shared something that's been rebuked as being very anti-Semitic. You know about this.
By me as well.
Yeah, how can anyone not rebuke it? It's appalling. Given that, would you ever feel comfortable being in a coalition with One Nation?
Well, just asking me a hypothetical question there. I'm focused on us winning as many seats as possible so we can form government in our own right. We're a serious party of government. That's what we do.
All right. Julian Leeser, we're out of time. Thank you.
Thank you.
That was the Shadow Education Minister, Julian Leeser, on his contribution